Okay, good afternoon, students. So, in last class, we have left this last example about the making a frequency distribution in using a inclusive method. Okay, so I have told you the method. I have shown you on a piece of paper also, that how to mark these tally bars and how to count that how many number of occurrences of a particular value had occurred. So accordingly, I have prepared this table. So if you have done this exercise at your home, so you can tell you that whether you are making the frequency table in a right way or not. So these were the values that for 40 to 44 we were having 8 occurrences. Then with the 45 to 49 we had 13 occurrences. Then 50 to 54 we had 6 occurrences. Then 55 to 59 we had this 10 occurrences, and from 60 to 64 we had 8 occurrences. This is the data source was this. I had told you in the last example. So this is how we can make these frequency tables, okay, and classify our data. So from this class, there are few changes are there. That is, one is now we will be having this chat box on the right side. This will be from the YouTube itself. So you need not to jump from one platform to other like WhatsApp and then send me a message. So instead of sending the message from your WhatsApp group, you can send directly in the live chat. Okay, so it will appear here, and if there will be any problem with the any student, that can be taken up simultaneously. Okay, so this is the one change, and I think you all might have marked your attendance already. I can see that in practical A batch it is almost done, B almost done, and C almost done. Okay, so rest who are left, we have more 15 minutes. That time you can mark your attendance. Otherwise, it will not be marked, or either it will mark absent. Okay, so you have to mark your attendance before 15. So now today we will be moving on to our next topic, and that topic is presentation of data. Okay, and this topic is particularly very important because whatever we have seen since starting, that we have started our topic with the introduction and importance of statistics and biostatistics, that how it is important, what are the definitions and different things, and then we moved on to data, and we tried to understand that what data is, what are its different types. And after understanding the different types of data, we have come across one collection of data. That is, there are different methods of collecting the primary and the secondary data, that how those can be collected. So accordingly, we just gone through that. And once the data is collected, we need to classify them. And that classification also we dealt in our previous lecture. So that classification method using the frequency tables we have understood. Okay. And now comes your presentation of data. So presentation, why this there is a requirement of presentation. So let us now start this chapter, and after going through this particular topic, you will be able to understand that if we understand the basic principles of presentation of data, so which is in raw form, and which is not you are not able to understand much out of it, so that can be presented in a way so that it can easily be perceived by the reader, and the meaningful information can be extracted, as well as at the same time you can compare different groups. Okay, so how to present a data, that we are going to do today. So in our previous chapter we learned how to collect the data. Now raw data, this raw data in its usual form does not provide much of the meaningful information. So to obtain the meaningful observation, data has to be presented in a proper manner. Now, this presentation of data can be done in four ways. So, first way is the textual presentation. Another way is tabular presentation. Then comes your diagrammatic presentation, and the last one is the graphical presentation. So by using these four presentation methods, you can very well present your data in a proper manner so that it can easily be understood by the reader. Okay. So in this chapter, we will consider these various possible ways of presentation of data and just to justify that when to use these things and what are the advantages of one over the other or what are the disadvantages of a particular type of presentation. So accordingly, you can pick up that which type of presentation you are going to do with the data. So first one is your textual presentation. So data described in the form of words. Okay, how when a data is described in the form of words, or either in the form of sentences, or in form of paragraphs. Okay, in textual presentation. Okay, so what is there in textual presentation? That is, data is either described in the form of words or sentences or paragraphs. Okay, it is generally being done to represent the data when there is a little scope of providing data in the form of tables, diagrams, and graphs. The next three methods of presentation. Okay, so when you find that this data we are not we will not be able to provide these data in the form of tables or diagrams or graphs, then you go for the textual presentation. So this textual presentation provide a way to present data in running sentences. Okay, what you do in this textual presentation, you provide the data or present the data in the form of running sentences in a document. So it is most of time also used to represent contextual data. Okay, what is a contextual data? A data which is related, which is not primarily being given, but with this data you can make the reader understood that what is the central idea of my data which I am presenting. Okay, so that is known as the contextual data. So this contextual data which cannot be accommodated in the main data in the form of tables, diagrams, or graphs. So sometimes along with your main data, you have some data which you cannot incorporate into your tables or diagrams or graphs because of the one or the other reason. So in that case, the contextual data is presented in the form of textual presentation. Okay, now according to this In and Lee in 2017, they told that text is the principal method of explaining findings. Okay, so by this textual presentation, what you can do, because in tables or these graphs or diagrams you cannot explain findings. To explain the findings, you have to rely upon the textual presentation. Then you can outline the trends. Okay, that what are the trends in your data, and you can also provide along with some contextual information to the reader, so that in a whole he or she will be able to understand the gist of the data. Okay, now we will learn about the properties of a good textual presentation. Okay, so what are the properties of a good textual presentation? So textual presentation should be written keeping in mind the target readers and their needs. What are their needs? Okay, so accordingly this text should be written according to the needs of the reader in order to make it more meaningful. Ultimately, the aim of your textual presentation should be to make the data more meaningful and fulfill the needs of the reader. Now, important points from the data should be highlighted. That is, there might be some important point in the data. They might be overlooked by the readers, but when you will be presenting it in the form of text, you will be able to highlight them that this particular point or this particular data is important. Okay, and as a property of a textual presentation, you should always avoid unnecessary details. Okay, then there should be no scope for one of the other property of a textual presentation is that when you are writing a textual presentation, you should not use a biased, slanted, or a emotional language. There is no scope for that. That is, you should never be using a biased or slanted or a emotional language in scholarly articles. So, scholarly language instead of decorative language must be a textual presentation. So, textual presentation does not at all means that it is a decorative language. You should not be biased. you should not be overheighten a finding. Okay, ultimately what you have to tell is should be on the scientific base that this particular finding provides this type of information. Okay, now the data presented in textual form should be accurate and should be the replica of the main data. That is, you should not add some data from your own. So whatever the data you are having, it should be only be presented in the textual form. Then repetition of monotonous sentences should be avoided, because when you will be explaining a thing, the data might be repeating again and again. So the same sentences should not be used again and again to describe a data in textual presentation. Okay, so if you any of you, and then sixth, that the number and percentage is must be described instead of general descriptive words. That is, when you are describing the textual data in the form of text, then you should not be using the words like too much, little, exactly, all, always, never, must, many more. You should tell the number or the percentage exactly you are getting. Then only the textual presentation will convey the information which is required by the. Okay, so anybody, if finding any difficulty during the lecture, can write their difficulties from the chat box, which you can see on the right side. Okay, it is available in your YouTube, this live YouTube channel itself. Okay, below the video. So you can write directly from there. Now we are coming to the advantages of the textual presentation. So what are the advantages of a textual presentation? Textual Textual presentation provides the scope for interpretation of data. That is, by presenting the data in the form of text, you can actually have a scope to interpret your data. Okay, and one can very well outline the trend or elaborate the finding. That is, the trends and these findings can very well be elaborated and outlined. Okay, then important points of data can be highlighted, which I have already told you in the properties. And then some trends can be explained with the help of contextual data. Okay, then qualitative data that cannot be explained in the form of tables, diagrams, or graphs can easily be presented. That is, when we have some qualitative data that cannot be explained in the form of tables or diagrams or graphs, that can easily be presented in the contextual, in contextual, not in contextual, in textual form. Okay. Then multiple tables, diagrams, graphs can be avoided for a small set of data. Sometimes you have very small set of data, and you just want to avoid making a table again and again from those small sets of data. Okay, so that small set of data which you have find in your study, you can very well present it in the form of textual presentation. Okay, so these are some of the advantages of textual presentation. Now coming to the disadvantages of disadvantage disadvantages of textual presentation. So what are the disadvantages of textual presentation? It calls for extensive space. That is, of course, this table can accumulate lot of information within a smaller space. At the same time, when you will be describing your those findings in the form of data, then you will be requiring extensive space in the form of paragraphs, in the form of other things. Okay, and the data from it cannot be extracted at a glance. Okay, just by seeing it, you cannot extract the data. You have to go through it, you have to read it. Then only you will be able to understand. Then it is not a suitable method for presentation of large data having multiple and repeated information. If you have a large data having multiple and repeated information, it is always better to go for tables, for graphs, or for diagrammatic presentation rather than this types of presentation. And one has to read all the information before comprehending the main gist of the data. So from this particular textual presentation, you have to read everything. Okay, after reading everything, then only you will be able to comprehend that what is the gist of it. So This is about the textual presentation. Then what are the advantages of textual presentation and what are the disadvantages of this textual presentation and the properties of the textual presentation. We have just gone through. Now coming to the next form of presentation, and that form of presentation is known as tabular presentation. Okay. So in tabular presentation of data, we present data in the form of tables. Okay. And this presenting the data in the form of table is one of the most common and the prevalent method of presenting gist of the data. Okay, so what is there in table? The numerical data is systematically presented in the forms of rows and columns. Okay, there are rows, there are columns, and there are defined attributes. Attributes we have already studied in our earlier. Okay, characteristic of it, which cannot be written in the form of numerics. Okay, those are known as attributes. Now a table expresses the data in concise. Okay, what a table does, it expresses the data in the form of concise and attractive form. Okay, from which can be easily understood and used to compare. Okay, one can understand that and can easily compare the numerical figures. Okay, so what are the benefit of data? It makes the data concise, attractive, then one can easily understood, and it can be used to compare the numerical figures. Okay, now categorical data and descriptive statistics of continuous data are generally being represented in the form of tables. And a good table presents value clearly. What are the properties of a good table? Okay. That it presents the value clearly, label them appropriately. Okay, that is, label them appropriately. That what this value means, the attributes, and provide enough context. Provides enough context for the reader to interpret the values correctly. Okay, so table you will be able to see the values clearly, you can, and they have been labeled well, and enough context has been provided so that you can interpret those values in the table, that okay, this table is signifying this data and what is the information received. Okay, now essentials of a tabulation. What are the essentials of a tabulation? So there are basically three parts or three essentials of a table. And what are those essentials? One is the values. That is the information in a individual cell of a table is known as values. Single datum or symbol or a observation. So it is the essential of a table. Until unless there are individual cells in which some values you have put, nobody can make a table. Okay, then second thing is the columns and the rows in a table makes groups, that is, which contains values either from a same group or from the same class. Okay, so second essential of a table is grouping. Then third essential of a table is comparison, that is, you need to make some comparison by making a table, that is, using a column or row that summarizes or compare two or more groups. So ultimately, the idea or the objective of making a table is to have some values which can be assembled in the form of groups, and those can be compared. Okay. Now, what are the objectives of a tabulation? It simplify the complex data in a systematic and concise form. It facilitates easy comparison. Okay, that is, it simplifies first thing, then if by it you can easily compare, improves the ease and speed with which specific information can be located and understood. Okay, so that you can locate the information you are need in a table very well. Okay, then facilitate the calculation and to identify defects if any in the data. So it also facilitates the calculation. Okay, now coming to the components of a table. So what are the different components of a table? So table in scientific publication usually have following components. So first one is the table number. So tables are assigned with a unique number, that is, in a document when you will be seeing. So every table will be having some unique number by which it can be identified, and that unique number is generally being quoted in the textual presentation of the data. So in textual presentation, you will be seeing the lines like as depicted in table number 3. Okay, so it means that the values in the textual presentation are the representation from the table number 3 of the document. Okay, so by assigning them a unique number, they can easily be identified in the textual presentation. Okay, so it provides an easy way for the cataloging and indexing. Okay, that is, by this you can catalog and index them also, these tables in a book or thesis. Okay, table number 1 is this, table number 2 is this, table number 4 is this. So easily you will be understand, okay, if I will be going to this table number, so I will be getting this sort of information. Now, table title. What is table title? It shows the nature of data it includes. That is, any table having a title, it should signify that what data has been incorporated into that table. Okay, so this identifies the data displayed in the table and the context in which. Okay, in nature there are two things. Okay, identification of the data, that is what data has been there in this table, and the context in which they should be interpreted. Okay. Then comes your columns. So columns, you already know columns. So these columns are also known as captions, okay, in a table. And what these columns or caption heading does, they identify the information contained in each column. Okay, what they do, if you read the caption or the column heading, you will be able to identify that in this column, particular column, what is the data or what information has been present. So a column may be further divided into sub-columns to signify different groups under a common column caption. That is, a particular column can further be divided into sub-columns, okay, in which further grouping can be done inside a table itself. Okay. Now comes your row or stub headings. So row, what is the row? It identifies the information contained in each row and may further be divided into sub headings of the relevant sub row headings. So even the rows can be divided into sub rows based on the nature of the data. Now, data. So the cell of the table other than those containing columns and rows headings. So any cell of the table which does not contain a column or row heading, all those cells contains the data inside a table. Okay, so this is the fifth component of the table. Now coming to the sixth component, these components are horizontal lines. Okay, so you will be seeing one very interesting thing here, that when we are describing a table in a scientific or a scholarly article, we do not describe vertical lines. Vertical lines are not allowed in a genuine, or you can say standardized scientific table. So only horizontal lines should be presented. No vertical line should be allowed in a table. Okay, so usually, at least this is a standard method. Although many people use, including me also, we use vertical lines also, so that one may not go from one to other row, but it is not a standard practice. One has to have in table only the horizontal lines. Okay, these are rules. So usually at least three horizontal lines are required. One is below the title. Okay, below title you have to have one line. Then below column headings. Okay, below the column headings one horizontal line should be there, and below the data field, okay, you should have a horizontal line. Additionally, other appropriated lines can be have, you can have like above totals, okay, separating major divisions of a data field. Now, other component of table is expanded or the abbreviations used in a table. So it usually been presented below the data field. These expanded, once the table is over, all the data has been presented, then we provide the expanded form of the abbreviations. Okay. Now, then coming to the expanded form of abbreviations used in table. So other are the some marks they also used in this tables. Okay, these are like the asterisk, then this. Okay, so I will be explaining these in the format of the table. So the format of table constitutes table number, one thing. Then it contains a table title. Already we have described this under the components of table. Then we will be having row heading, then column heading. The column heading can further be divided into column subheadings. Then we have to tell that each column how many number of observations are there, and those being presented using the group size. And then we also have to describe the units. Okay. Then this is a single column heading. Then we have a group size. Then we have row subheadings, okay, accordingly. So we can have, then we have a total, and these are the expanded abbreviations. Like you might have used some uh, short abbreviations inside the table. So those short abbreviations expanded just below the total. Then you might have used this asterisk or a dragger or a double dragger, section mark, parallel mark, paragraph mark, double asterisk. Okay, so like this you might have used. So we have started from asterisk, then dragger, double dragger, section, parallel, then paragraph. Then comes double asterisk. Then will come double dragger. Then double dragger. Then double section mark. So like this we will go on. Okay. Then you might have used some superscript of lower letter like A, B, C on your data so as to compare them with each other. Okay. So like this, these tables are being formed. Then these tables are often referred to by the number of explanatory variables they present. Okay, so these may be one-way table, which can explain a single explanatory variable. If one variable has been included in the table, then it is known as one-way table. If there are two explanatory variables are there, okay, bivariate data, then it will be two-way table. And if it is having multi-way or three or more, okay, then it will be multivariate. Okay, right? So this completes our table or tabulation. So we have studied the one we have studied is textual presentation. Then we have studied now tabular presentation. The next form of presentation is the diagrammatic presentation. So today, in today's class, we will not be having a break. Okay. Instead, we will continue, and we will be completing this diagrammatic presentation. Okay. And after that, we will be closing our today's lecture. Okay. Because the graphical presentation I will be taking in the your next class. Okay. So now diagrammatic presentation. So two methods, textual and tabular presentation of data has already been discussed. And the major limitation of this taxol and tabular presentation is this, that sometimes, in most of the times, it becomes difficult and cumbersome. Okay, task for a researcher to interpret large masses of numerical information. If you have large masses of numerical information, it becomes very difficult to understand that what this table is having, okay, or what this taxol presentation is having. So sometimes it may fail to convey the message meaningfully to the reader for whom it is meant. Okay, so to overcome this inconvenience, diagrammatic presentation of data has been invented to supplement and explain the tables. Okay, you should be able to understand this word, to supplement. That is, tables will remain there. Okay, but to supplement them so that the reader can understand the information in a better way. Okay, the diagrams are being prepared. So practically every day we can find presentation of these cricket scores, then a stock market, then cost of living index, etc. In newspaper, television, magazine reports, etc. You might have seen various type of diagrams and graphs. Okay, so these are also termed as visual presentation or charting. Okay, they are also known as charts. Okay. So these diagrams and graphs. So these are one of the method of the visual presentation of the data. Okay. Now diagrammatic presentation is one of the technique of visual presentation of statistical data. So it is a fact that diagram do not add a new meaning to statistical facts. You should understand. But they reveal the fact of data more quickly and clearly. What is the purpose of these? That is, they reveal the facts more quickly and clearly. If there is a true false, that diagrams do add new meaning to statistical facts? No, they reveal the fact of the data more quickly and clear. Okay, so why? Because examining the figures from table become laborious and uninteresting to the eye and also confusing. So diagrams helps us to see the pattern, okay, pattern and shape of any complex situation. Thus, the data presented through diagrams are the best way of appealing to the mind visually. Okay, they are visually very appealing. So immediately you will understand, okay, this has happened, this is greater than this is lesser than this, like that. Okay, so hence diagrams are widely being used in practice to display the structure of the data in research work. Okay, so they are always your friends when you will be doing some research, and ultimately, first of all, what you will do? You will collect the data, then you will classify the data, then you will tabulate the data, present it in the form of these textual presentation, and along with that, you have to make some diagrams and the graphs. Okay, then only your presentation will be complete. Now, rules for preparing a diagram. What are the rules of preparing a diagram? So, the prime objective of diagrammatic presentation of data is to highlight the, what we want to do is highlight their basic hidden facts and relationships. Okay, so which are basically being hidden inside the data, which are not very easily understood by the human brain and the eye. So they will just highlight them, okay, in front of you in the form of visuals. So accordingly, you will be able to understand that data in a better way. Now, to ensure that the presentation of numerical data is more attractive and effective, it is essential to keep following general rules in mind while adapting a diagram in a research work. So we will be discussing them one by one. So what is the first rule? So you must have noted that diagrams must be geometrically accurate. It is not like that we will make one thing of 1 centimeter and another of 1 feet. Okay. So they should be in relation to each other and they should be geometrically accurate. So therefore, they should be drawn on a graphic axis. Okay. So in diagram, there is graphic axis. That is, one is the x-axis, horizontal line, and other is the y-axis, which is known as vertical line. Okay, however, the diagrams are generally drawn on plain paper after considering the scale. So this is the first difference between the graphical representation and the diagrammatic presentation. Diagrams are prepared or drawn on a plain paper, okay, but after considering a scale, there is some scale is there, okay, then these diagrams are prepared. However, in graphical presentation they are prepared on a graph paper. So this is the basic difference between a diagram and a graph. So, while taking the scale on the x-axis and y-axis, you must ensure that the scale showing the value should be multiple of like some whole number like 2 or 5 or 10 or 20 or 50. So, it should be considered. Okay. So, because it becomes easier for the reader to interpret things if you have taken a scale in the multiple of 2 or 5 or 10 or 20 like this. Okay. Now, the scale should be clearly set. That is, you should tell that this scale shows what, the figure shows what, whether these are million of tons or persons in lakhs or values in thousand. On the y-axis, it should always start from 0. Okay, you can start a x-axis from anywhere as per your data convenience, but to have a relative reference or comparison, the y-axis should always start from 0. That is, vertical scale is never broken. Okay, vertical scale should not be broken. Okay, also you might have start from 0, but in between you cannot broke that vertical scale. That is, after, say for example, you are having a 100 scale, 100, 200, then you will break it, then you comes to 500, then 600, not like this. If you start from 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, then only the whatever the diagrams you will be getting, they you can easily. Okay. Now every diagram must have a concise and a self-explanatory title. Okay. So concise and explanatory title should be there, which may be written at the top or at the bottom of the diagram. Now, in order to draw the reader's attention, diagrams must be attractive and well proportioned. So, because if you will be taking the principles of this scale, non-breaking of the vertical scale, and then multiple all these things, so your diagram is going to be proportional. That is for sure. Okay. Now, different colors or shades. Hmm? Different colors or shades should be used to exhibit various components of diagrams, and also an index must be provided for the identification. That is, some color should be used, and finally some index should be there that which color means what inside your diagram. Okay, so this is the one of the major things. Now, it is essential to choose a suitable type of diagram, and the selection depends upon number of variables you are having in your data, minimum and maximum values what you are having, and what is the objective of your presentation. Okay, that is number of variables you have in your data will determine that what type of diagram you will be using. Then your minimum and maximum values, how much you are having, and then your objective of the presentation decides that which type of diagram you should be using. Okay. Now, types of diagrams. So generally diagrams are classified on the basis of their length, width and shape. Okay, that is on the basis of length or on the basis of their width or on the basis of their shape, the diagrams are generally being divided. So there are various types of diagrams. So one is one dimensional diagrams. Okay, then there are two dimensional diagrams. Fine. Then there are three-dimensional diagrams. Okay. Then there are charts. Then there are pictograms. Okay. Then there are cartograms. Okay. So all these are there. But however, we will be discussing here only the important types, which are most frequently being used in biostatistics. So particularly biostatistics and particularly in business research. So therefore, we have restricted ourselves to one-dimensional bar diagrams, pie diagrams, and structure diagrams. Okay. So we will be studying in this chapter the one-dimensional bar diagrams, pie diagrams, and structural diagrams. So what is a one-dimensional bar diagram? So bar refers to a thick line. What is a bar? Bar is a thick line. Okay, I'm just highlighting this. So the keyword of a bar is a thick line. Under this type of construction, only one dimension, that is the length, is taken. Okay, we are worried about the length only. Okay, and is taken into account for the purpose of comparison and observation of the fluctuations. That is, it may be some growth or some other variable, but we are taking only the one variable and in one direction along the length. So the length of each bar is proportionate to the magnitude of the data. Okay, so the length of the bar you will be getting in your diagram will be in proportion to the magnitude of the data. Okay, now the width is not related to the magnitude of the data in one dimensional diagram. Okay, that is the width of your this bar diagram will not be proportional to the data. Now generally the width is given for the purpose of visual effect and attractiveness only. And as a rule, the width of each bar and the gap between one bar to the another bar must be uniform. That is, the width of your bar and the distance between the two bars should be uniform. Now, if we mention the respective figures at the top of every bar, particularly when the scale is too narrow, so that the reader the figures without consulting the scale of the diagram. So why we do this thing? We do this thing so that the reader will be able to understand the figures given at the top of the bar without consulting to the scale. If we will be having bars very close to each other, so it will be very difficult to label them. Okay, so for proper labeling and proper attractiveness and proper retrieval of the information from a one-dimensional this diagram, it is very important to have a uniform bar width and a distance between them. Okay, now, so large number of bar diagrams are available, such as line diagram, simple line you can use, simple bar diagram, multiple bar diagram, subdivided bar diagram, percentage bar diagram, deviation bar diagrams, etc. Okay, so there are so many. Okay, so for our reference, we will be studying some of them, not all. Okay, so these are some of the bar diagrams which can be studied under the this one dimensional bar diagram. Okay, percentage, then deviation. Okay, and however we will be studying here simple bar diagram, multiple bar diagram, and subdivided bar. Okay, so we will be studying these things. So I think it will be a better idea if we can have one break. Okay, so I will be leaving this lecture to start from simple bar diagram, and I think we will be having an another class of around 30 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes. So I will be meeting with you all at this uh, 4:15. Okay, so 4:15 we will be starting our next class. So I will be closing as for now. If you are having any difficulty, uh, uh, kindly keep it with you. Okay, I will be soon sharing the URL of the next video with you. So in the URL of that next video, you can put up your questions in the live chat. Okay, so if there are any questions from any of the earlier lecture or from the today lecture, you can put it in the live chat box. So I will be dealing with it. Okay, so thanks for patience hearing. We will be meeting after half an hour. Okay, thank you.